Cleveland. The 40-year-old Flacco entering his 18th NFL season, his second stint in Cleveland. Last year, he started 6 games for the Colts, throwing 12 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Flacco will make his 2025 Browns debut on September 7th when they host the Bengals. Aditi Kunkabwala joining us now here on CBS Sports HQ. You know this team inside and out. What did the Browns see in training camp that ultimately made them decide on Flacco, Aditi?
He was the most available quarterback. We just heard Danny Cannell say this. Everybody else in the room got hurt. And look, Joe Flacco, obviously, I sat down with him. I went and spent a whole day with his family in July. He fully expected it to win this job. He wanted to win this job. He said he wasn't going to be doing this if he didn't think he had a shot to win this job. But unfortunately, Kenny Pickett, who started camp by taking the first team reps and did look really good, hurt his hamstring pretty badly the first week. So he's been limited since then. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders are both very promising rookies who've done well but have some growing and developing to do and haven't really been in a position yet to take significant first-team reps to beat out Flacco. And by the way, both of them have gotten hurt too. Dillon Gabriel tweaked his hamstring. Shedeur Sanders last week tweaked his oblique. And of course, for a quarterback, the oblique affects everything in the way that you move your torso. So Flacco obviously brings a lot of veteran stability. He knows how to run this Kevin Stefanski offense inside out. His arm is still as explosive as it's ever been. He very well could have won this job outright, but right now, the best thing about him has been his availability. The good thing, Jenny, is that the Browns can now finally start running offense suited and tailored to Flacco. Because head coach Kevin Stefanski even told us last week as we were prepping for last week's game that each quarterback does something a little bit different. And so they've been running different offense for each quarterback. Not drastically different, but now they can really sort of get into what they're installing, what their scheme will be, and move forward.
Yeah, having those one-on-one reps with the QB1 is definitely going to be key here. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but are you insinuating that if there weren't health issues, you think this job might have gone to Kenny Pickett?
I don't know that because we didn't see the whole competition play out, right? We saw the first week. Now, in the spring, Kevin Stefanski was indeed giving the majority of the first team reps to Kenny Pickett and a lot of reps to Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel. He explained that to everyone and to Joe Flacco himself as the fact that we know what Joe brings. We need to learn these other guys. Kenny Pickett, of course, had those 2 years starting in Pittsburgh. Then last year spent the year as a backup with the Eagles, went 1-0 as a starter. The Browns needed to learn him a little bit more. They needed to get a better sense of him. I know that they really liked his athleticism. His speed was very impressive to Kevin Stefanski. They felt good about what he could do, and then he got hurt. So Joe Flacco actually got more first-team reps than the Browns probably expected during training camp. Deshaun Watson, you're seeing over there, he's still not back from the re-torn Achilles. So it's a crowded room. And you're forgetting also Snoop Huntley is in there. They had to bring him in 2 weeks ago when Dillon Gabriel got hurt before the first preseason game.
So you just mentioned it's a crowded room. So what happens with all these extra QBs that they just have floating around?
Look, I can tell you this. Deshaun Watson isn't healthy just yet. We're still waiting to see how healthy Kenny Pickett is. I know Kevin Stefanski had said to me that he hopes Pickett could possibly be full go by this third preseason game against the Rams, but that's just a hope. And Shedeur Sanders, we don't know how bad that oblique is. And like I just said, for a quarterback, the oblique is pretty significant. So who's healthy? Are all 4 actually going to be healthy at the start of the season? I can tell you that Browns general manager Andrew Berry has insisted that he can keep 4 quarterbacks on the active roster. His feeling is that your last 5 guys on a roster are developmental guys anyway, and so why not keep a developmental quarterback? But I can also tell you, Jenny, that I was chatting with an offensive coach in the NFL just last night who was asking me about Kenny Pickett as a trade object for trade status. And I do think, and not just Pickett, it could be Flacco, If you look around the league right now, there are still some unsettled quarterback situations. There are still some teams that potentially aren't totally satisfied with their quarterback rooms. There's a very good chance that Andrew Berry and the Browns are going to be fielding phone calls for any and all of these quarterbacks right now.
A little nugget there from Aditi. I love that. You're great at finding out these little scoops, and you did mention that you spent some real quality time with Flacco and his family earlier this summer. What else did you learn about him during that visit related to this upcoming season?
He's playing looser than he ever has. So he still has an enormous amount of confidence. You mentioned last year, Jenny, my crew, our CBS crew, had a bunch of games that Flacco actually played in and started for the Colts. And I can tell you this, Flacco made that offense go. We watched him engineer a comeback win over the Steelers. We watched him almost bring the team back against the Jaguars. We watched him win in Tennessee. It's hard to be in and out, not have it necessarily be your team. If you think about it, the Colts aren't going to give up on their first-round pick, Anthony Richardson. So that's why the keys weren't necessarily handed to Flacco. You go back a few years before that magical run with the Browns 2 years ago, and with the Jets, it was a similar situation. The Jets weren't going to give up on their first-round pick, Zach Wilson, no matter how well Flacco played. If you look at Flacco's numbers over his last 17, 18 starts, he's thrown for a heck of a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. That arm is still there. He's still motivated. But like I said, at this age, at this stage of his career, he's not nearly as stressed, and he doesn't feel the pressure of having to prove anything to anyone. And I think you and I both know this. When we're feeling loose, we just perform better. So that's a good thing. He's got a veteran offensive line. The Browns have gone back to running the ball the way that Kevin Stefanski likes to run the ball. The offense that the Browns ran when Kevin Stefanski won both of his Coach of the Year awards. So after last year's disastrous attempt to change offense, they're back to doing what they do well. They're expecting their second-round draft pick, Quinshon Judkins, to be back in the fold pretty soon, and they've gotten good looks from rookie running back Dylan Sampson. They like Jerome Ford. If they can run the ball much better this year, that also bodes well for this team. So there's optimism, and again, now you can actually settle into your offense. I'll say this too. I was at the joint practices with the Eagles last week, and you could see on the second day the Browns offense was functioning better against a really, really good Eagles defense. The Browns came out of those joint practices with definitely a boost of confidence.
Good news for Browns fans. Aditi, thanks for joining us here. Looking at headlines, we start in the NFL, where the Browns have signed former Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond to a 3-year deal. That news coming days after a grand jury declined to indict him on sexual assault charges. Bond, who was projected to be a day 2 pick in this year's NFL draft, went unselected after a warrant for his arrest went public. The Dolphins are hosting free agent edge rusher Matthew Judon on a visit today. The 4-time Pro Bowler spent last season with the Falcons, racking up 5.5 sacks. Now, the Fins' top 3 edge rushers include Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and Chop Robinson. All 3 of those players have dealt with injuries over the past year. The Colts are signing free agent cornerback Xavier Howard. It's a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. That is according to NFL Network. The former All-Pro corner and NFL interceptions leader did not play in the NFL last season after being released by the Dolphins. Ohio State head coach Ryan Day has named Julian Sayin as the starting quarterback. The former 5-star prospect beat out junior Lincoln Keenholz for the QB1 job in Columbus. Sayin will face a tall task in his first career start for the Buckeyes. They open up the season August 30th against #1 Texas at the Shoe. And Syracuse has named Notre Dame transfer Steve Angeli as their starting quarterback. That's the latest from our Chris Hummer. He narrowly beat out LSU transfer Ricky Collins for that starting job. He'll be under center for the Orange on August 30th when Syracuse opens up its season against #24 Tennessee in Atlanta.